movie.
Yeah, I think they'd be disappointed.
Yeah, they would be horribly disappointed, but they would be like, well, what did I expect, I guess, at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
these are two films that shouldn't be merged.
Yeah,
That's,
like it
it's not
wouldn't
going to
work.
end well. And one last thing I like to do is how deep and how blue is the film. So
Ooh.
if I were to tell you that on average Deep Blue Sea
Mhm.
is 14.5 meters deep,
Did
and
you personally measure that?
yep, and
Wow.
31% blue. So I went through the
Nice.
film. It was a lot easier doing it scene by scene because I could take it
Uh-huh.
in smaller chunks. And
Yeah.
I did my best estimate for how deep every part of Deep Blue Sea is, all the levels of Aquatica.
I am such a fan of this commitment.
And then what percentage of the screen was blue at any given point.
I love it.
And then on average it's about 14.5 meters deep, 31% blue.
31 feels quite little for a film called Deep Blue Sea.
Yes. Well, but you got to bear in mind, a lot of it takes place like indoors, where it's mainly like grey.
That's fair. Like
And
lab
yeah,
vibes.
I actually took a lot of leeway with that. Like anytime they're fully submerged, I just counted it as 100% blue because everything's like got a blue tint to it, even though
Hmm.
that thing is clearly yellow, but it's
Yeah.
like a blue tint underwater. So I just said it's blue.
Yeah. I'll take it.
So do you reckon Shark in Venice is on average deeper and or bluer
I
than
think
Deep Blue Sea?
I I like to think it's deeper because we're going to a lot of caverns and we're diving a lot. Um, I can't imagine it's bluer, but then all of those sort of sharks in like Australia shots might make it more blue than I'm perhaps remembering. And there's a
Well,
lot of water everywhere, so yeah, I'd say it's bluer.
well, it is not as deep nor as blue, I'm
Oh,
afraid.
okay, that's
It,
fair.
it is
Well,
it is close blue wise. It is like 28% blue, so just under
okay.
31. But depth wise, I tried to see how deep the canals of Venice were,
Uh-huh.
and at their deepest they go down to about 50 meters, but they are on average. Most of them are like 2 meters deep, or some are like 5, and they get some that go down to 15 and 20. So he's diving down to the deeper ones for these. So I went for
Mm.
like 15, 20 meters deep, and then a little bit less for that when he's in the cavern because to climb up that well. So it worked out on average about 3 meters deep because you have to take into account all the time spent on the surface, which is most of the film.
That's true,
So
that's fair.
that works against it. So that's about 9.5 feet for other listeners, about 3 meters deep.
Okay,
So this is
nice.
my little personal project that very few people care about.
I think it's brilliant. I think you'll be remembered for it. It better be on your CV.
I hope so. It shall be. Good. Well, thank you, Emily, for introducing me to Shark in Venice and coming on to talk about it.
Oh my gosh, you are so welcome. I'd like to think that your life's a little bit better now, and I'd like to thank your wife for also enduring it.
I will pass that on because she will not listen to this show. But what would you like to plug? Where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, Why This Film podcast is over on Anchor. If you type in Why This Film podcast, then make sure to find Anchor. It's the most updated version because Acast is still stuck on Flight of Dragons for some reason. So go over to Anchor. And we're working our way through the Barbie movies on there. So tune in to hear what me and Stephen Palmer think of all the Barbie movies. And Through Dangers Untold is making its way through Labyrinth 1986, one DVD chapter at a time still. I think that's it.
And you can. I was a guest on Through Dangers Untold for the meeting of Hoggle, and
Yes.
on Why This Film podcast talk about Daylight, one of my
Yes.
favourite films from
It's
as a
such
youth.
a good film.
It's great. I'm glad that you liked it.
I really did. I still haven't seen The Poseidon Adventure, so I can't compare it yet, but
Also
I'll
very
let you know
good.
when I do.
And if listeners, if you enjoyed listening to Emily and I talk about a film that she knows very well and I'm watching for the first time, then you should listen. The week this goes out, you should listen to the Lampcast, where she's one movie of the month talk about Dragonheart,
Yes!
a film I haven't seen in full.
The
So
best film ever made!
listeners know my thoughts on Dennis Quaid. So that will be an interesting topic, and there's a connection where that was directed not just by the same director as Daylight, but the same year as Daylight.
Yeah!
So all things coming
So
together
good.
for that
It
film.
honestly, it feels like symmetry. It's beautiful.
It does. And you can find my writing over at lifeversusfilm.com, Life vs Film. It's relatively near the start of the year, so I've been doing end of year lists, as most blogs do around this time. But I'm going to try and get back into reviewing a bit more this year. I say that every year, it never happens, but I'm going to keep trying to try.
Nice.
And you can listen to me, if you like movie trivia, then head over to the Lambcast once a month to listen to me host a movie trivia show called Lampardy, which is always fun.
It's
a
so
new year.
good.
It's a new year. We started a new tournament, new contestants, having a fun time. We recorded the first episode the other night at midnight for me.
Wow.
After a full day of work.
Oh no.
Because
Americans.
Yes, because scheduling is fun times. And the LAM, the Large Association of Movie Blogs. If you have a movie blog or podcast, then come join us at largeassmovieblogs.com. And you can find Mark's writing and podcasting at Movies, Films and Flicks, FLIX. Schedule's lit up in the air as to what we're going to be doing next week, but it might be Under Siege, the Steven Seagal submarine film. Nice. We shall see. It could also be Skip Trace, it could be Ice Sharks. We've got a few things in the hopper that it could be. Maybe I'll amend this. I'll fill that in here by the time this goes out. Next week we're talking about Ravenous, 1999's Ravenous, the cannibal movie from 1999. Not very Deep Blue Sea adjacent, but it's come up a lot on the podcast. We'll talk about it next week. Ravenous. There we go. But as for today's show, thank you once again to my guest Emily Slade.
Thank you.
I've been Jake Lewitt, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.
I love it.